Welcome to another episode of Angling Wisdom. I'm glad that you came back. And today we're going to talk about a hot topic. No pun intended there. We're going to talk about fishing for rainbow trout, musky, those kind of things during warm weather conditions and how that can affect the fish. So stick around. Welcome to the Angling Wisdom Podcast, the freshwater fishing podcast for multi-species anglers.
I've known Patrick for quite a few years, and there are a lot of people out there. It's an ego-driven industry. It's all about them. To find somebody that really wants to go find anglers for all different species, to bring them in, to give everybody a voice. This is the difference between what Patrick's doing and a lot of other shows. Is there's only a special few out there.
I have a very special guest all the way from Wapiti, Wyoming.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jim Zumbo. It's nice to actually spend 2.5 days fishing.
With a master angler like you, are you kidding me? This is a real treat.
Get ready for the culmination of angling wisdom and fun. I'm your host, Patrick Edwards, and this is the Angling Wisdom Podcast.
All right, let's talk about the hot topic. Let's talk about fishing for cold water species and some of the bigger species that don't necessarily handle the heat too well during the peak of summer. So right now it is August. It's very, very warm where I'm at. Today it was almost 100 degrees. The wind has been blowing. The water is extremely warm. And so the hot topic that I want to bring up is, should we be fishing for trout and maybe even tiger muskies and other fish that tend to have a higher mortality rate when the water temperatures are up? The jury is definitely not out as far as how many fish die, but the jury is out on how much it affects fisheries. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to mainly lean on my personal experience. I do have some articles and some other things here, and we can put some notes in the show notes for you so that you can look and decide for yourself. Because ultimately, if you're catching fish to keep them, it doesn't really matter. Mortality is assured. If you're going to catch fish and you're going to harvest them, it really is a moot point. There is no point in having a discussion about it. But there are a lot of people that like to catch and release, and I know your avid trout anglers still like to go out during the summer months and do their trout fishing. The question then becomes, is it something that they should be doing? Same with musky fishermen. Should you be fishing for these critters when the water temperature is in 75 to 80 degrees? So we're just going to talk about the basics of that. Again, this is an argument that I don't typically engage in a whole lot, just because honestly, a lot of times I'm keeping like walleye and stuff this time of year. I don't fish for trout this time of year. I don't fish for musky this time of year. So it doesn't affect me as much. But there are, like, if you watch social media, people get pretty fired up about this. You have a camp over here that says, if the water temperature is above this certain temperature, you better not be fishing because you're going to kill fish, especially if you're intending to release them. Then you have camps over here that are saying it really doesn't matter that much. You're not going to affect that big of a population of fish. And I would say I land kind of more in the middle. I mean, I think that there's definitely a point to, if you're trying to release fish and the whole point is you want to catch it and you want it to swim on so you can catch it again, if you're fishing in conditions that aren't going to really allow for that to happen, or really going to swing the pendulum towards the mortality side, you should probably leave the fish alone. But I also know how much I love fishing, so it would be hard for me to just be like, yeah, I'm just not going to fish for now. But that's why I choose to fish for other species. They're a little more hardy and can handle it if I'm going to release them. Again, though, in the summer, I'm typically catching and keeping walleye, so doesn't really matter, but I'm sure there's other species you could fish for. A species that you can catch and release all year round is carp. I know a lot of people don't want to target them, but honestly, if you're catch and release, you're going to be just fine. Those fish are going to survive, and a lot of you are saying, no, I'd kill all the carp. Anyway, I hear you. I'm just saying, like, there are other species, catfish, bass, your warm water species are going to handle being handled and fighting on a line way better than a trout will, especially in warmer water, because most trout are cold water species. Salmonids don't do well when they're exposed to higher temperatures. And so a lot of them struggle in a lot of places in the country, not as much in Wyoming, but it certainly is an aspect, like Boysen Reservoir, which is really close to where I live. Trout in the summer tend to struggle a little bit. If you're going to catch trout in the summer, you might as well keep them because they're probably not going to make it. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're going to fish for trout in the summer.
Fellow anglers, it's time to up your game with PK Lures, crafted to help you catch the fish of your dreams. Whether it's the classic PK spoon, the flutterfish, or the reliable PK Ridgeline crankbait, PK Lures has the perfect lure for any fishing scenario. No matter if you're fishing on the ice or in open water, PK Lures has a wide range of lure options to help you catch walleye, trout, panfish, and more. These aren't just lures, they're proven performers. Designed by master angler Pat O'Grady and tested by some of the best anglers in the world, they are trusted for results. From the hard water to open lakes and rivers, PK Lures delivers. Find your perfect lure today at pklure.com and use the code WISDOM for 20% off of your order.
Does make sense what this article from Idaho Fish Game said, where the impact on overall population is probably not as much as you would think. Now, if you're in Idaho and Wyoming and you maybe have that pressure spread out over a pretty long area, lots of miles, it's probably not going to affect the fishery a whole lot. Now, where I would disagree with these articles a little bit is if you're on a blue ribbon fishery, so say you're on like the Wind River Canyon here where I live, or the Miracle Mile, and you're catching a lot of fish and the water temperatures are up, there is a greater likelihood, even if you're fly fishing, that the mortality rates are going to be higher. Now, we know if you're bait fishing, they're definitely going to be higher. But even with just fly fishing, there's a chance that you're going to swing that pendulum a lot further to the higher mortality side than you probably want. So sure, that's probably why a lot of areas have like fishery closures during higher temperatures, is they don't want to lose those really nice fish, those really high quality fish. A lot of that has to do with economics because they want people to come back to that area to fish. And people that fish in an area spend money in that area. So people are paying for lodging, they're paying for gas, they're paying for licenses, which is why you're going to see a lot of these organizations look at like, how do we protect the bigger fish? Is because they want to sell licenses. They want to sell whatever they can. It is an economic driver. I think that there's definitely a camp that would agree with me in saying that like there are certain fisheries that you probably want to watch really closely and you probably want to be really careful with, just because people are spending a lot of money. Now, I've heard other people say, well, my fishery gets ruined every year because people are either fishing during the spawn or they're fishing when the temperatures are really high. And then what you find out is it really actually didn't have as big of an effect on it as you thought. So I would agree with the article in some ways. Like there are a lot of people that like raise the alarm. Oh my gosh, all of our fish are going to be dead. All of our fish are getting caught. All of our fish are, it's like an overgeneralization when that's not actually the case. So let's look at some of the stats. So I pulled up just some articles here, just talking about different temperatures. Brook trout, if you start getting over 70 degrees, it starts to be really hard on them. Rainbow trouts in the upper 70s. 79 is lethal. And so if you get water that's too hot, just trout aren't going to make it. You look at a trout wrong, they're probably going to die. They are not a very hardy type of fish. Whereas like a walleye or a catfish or a carp or any of those other species of bass, they're just a lot more resilient. So trout are pretty delicate as it is. So when you start adding in temperature, which is like one of the biggest killers of trout, you have a real problem on your hands. So this Idaho Fish Game study that I was looking at, they looked at mortality across different fishing mediums, like how are people catching the fish. So flies and lures, it was like 4 to 6%. Bait was 25%, so much higher. And the main reason for that is like if you're fishing bait, typically the fish is ingesting whatever you're fishing with and sucking it down their throat, which causes damage to the gills. You're handling them a lot longer. all sorts of different things. You're sticking things in their mouth trying to unhook them. They tend to bleed a lot. It's no wonder that the mortality is a lot higher. So they looked at a lot of different factors, but a big piece of this that doesn't get talked about, and we can talk about water temperature, but a really big one is how you handle the fish.
For me, fishing isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. And every angler deserves a rod as unique as their journey. That's where TB Custom Rods comes in. Handcrafted custom fishing rods built to your exact specifications. Perfectly balanced and tailored to your style. Work with Trapper and choose your design, select your components, and feel the difference of a rod made just for you. Visit tbcustomrods.com to get started on your custom rod today.
So if you're fishing for trout in the summer, let's say you're in my boat and we're fishing for walleye and we have a bycatch of a rainbow trout, which happens all the time. You catch a big rainbow, like say a 22 incher, you net that thing, you pull it into the boat. It's already going to be struggling because you pulled it out of the water now. It's on your hot deck of your boat. It's probably 90 degrees on Boysen Reservoir sometimes when I'm fishing. So now you've got this cold water fish you just took out of 70 plus degree water. You stuck it on the deck of a hot boat in the scorching sun. You wrestled it around because you might have caught it on a crankbait. It's flopped around, beat itself against the boat. You take some pliers, you unhook it, and even if you were to just try to chuck that thing right back in the water, it's probably not going to make it. We've had this happen where tried to release fish. I tell people, I'm like, it's not going to make it, but they'll try to release it. It'll go in the water, and then we'll be watching, and it'll come right back up, belly up, because it's done. The damage has been done. So then we go back and, of course, keep it towards the limit. That's just an all too common occurrence for trout in the summer. They just can't handle the heat. And also, like with the handling, like if you end up handling them in that way because you're fishing for walleye, which are much more hardy, they're probably not going to make it. And they tend to be pretty aggressive in the summer, and they'll bite lures that I'm fishing for walleye for, even on jigs. They'll hit pretty good size swim baits and whatnot. A lot of it comes down to handling. When you pull them out of the water, you take the slime off of them, you get them too hot, they typically tend to bleed. It's just not a good scenario. Now, if I were to catch something like that in the summer and try to keep it alive and not harvest it, the best thing to do is if you net it, keep it in the water. You can reach down with pliers, forceps, whatever, pop that hook out, and then just let the fish go. Don't even bring it into the boat. Same thing with muskies this time of year. I know on my old show with the Radcast podcast, we talked to Pete Mena, who's one of the foremost muskie experts, and he said the same thing. He said, if you're gonna fish for muskies in the summer, you're gonna kill them. So the best thing to do is just to do something else. Go find another fish species to chase for a while, which I think is more fun too, because I mean, you want to find other kinds of fish to catch. But he was talking about people think that they're not overstressing the fish, but they'll have a long fight with a muskie. They'll get it next to the boat. They'll get it into the net. They don't take it out of the water, and they'll unhook it, and it'll swim off. And a lot of times will still die because of all the stress. But with trout, like in muskies, that's the best you can do. Because sometimes even muskie fishing, I know a lot of people that do a lot of muskie fishing out towards the Midwest. What'll happen is they'll be fishing for bass or something else, and they'll catch a muskie. Well, at that point, it's like, what do you do? Especially if you're on lighter tackle, because they're going to fight for a long time. And if you want to try to release it, the only thing you can do is do your best. You can't magically make the conditions better. So you have to just do the best you can. So again, keep it in the water, keep it in the net, unhook it while it's in the net. Don't pull it out of the water for a picture. Just leave it in there, let her go. Unless it's like a giant, when you probably want to try to get a picture. That's just the way it is. But I'll tell you what, man, it is hard with some of those species to keep them alive when the water temperatures are up. So the best advice I can give you is just handle them as gently as possible, especially trout. The joke is you look at them funny and they die. They're such a delicate species, and I know fly anglers still like to catch them in the summer, but I'm telling you, even just fighting them on a fly line sometimes is not the best idea. Now, if you're going up into the high mountain lakes, that's a different story where the water temperatures are lower. I actually just got back from a golden trout trip with my buddy John and our two boys and caught several trout up there, and they all released just fine, but the water's much colder up there. You're talking like 50-degree water versus 70 plus. So it only makes sense that, you know, the fish are going to survive a lot better. And of course, if you handle them well, they're going to be fine. So just something to think about. I don't know where you land on this issue, but it is something that you should at least consider when you're thinking about what species you should be pursuing. Again, if you're harvesting, who cares? You're going to eat it anyway. You're going to make it die. So it doesn't really matter. So if you're out there and you catch a trout on a lure like this and they bleed all over the place and you were planning to keep them anyway, no big deal. Take it home, eat it. And if you think your fish isn't going to make it and you're trying to release it, you should try to keep it. If it's legal to do so, don't just throw it back in the lake and waste it. If there's something you can do with it, do something with it. So anyway, those are my thoughts on fishing in the summers, fishing in the heat. I will also say this is a time of year that I find some other things to do. I don't spend as much time fishing just because it is harder on the fish. It's harder on me too. I don't like being in the 90+ degree weather. That's why I bailed up to the mountains to go do some mountain fishing. It's a lot cooler. It's a lot more enjoyable for me, even though I got to deal with the high elevation and the hiking. But yeah, just find other ways to scratch that itch for fishing. But fishing lower elevation, higher temperature waters for trout is probably not the best idea. And fishing for muskies this time of year is probably not the best either. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. Drop them in the comments. I've got these hats that are available. If you're interested, let me know. Would love to send you one. We've got them on sale for $25 a piece. So this is the Angling Wyoming walleye. We'll be coming out with some other patterns here before too long. But again, thanks for all the support. You can go to anglingwisdom.com to get more information. And we'd love to hear back from you. Any feedback is great. You can check us out on the socials at either Angling Wyoming or Angling Wisdom. So until next time, I'll see you out on the water.
Angling Wisdom has been brought to you by TB Custom Rods and PK Lures. Don't forget to subscribe to Angling Wisdom on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so you don't miss any of our new episodes. Also go to anglingwisdom.com for more fishing content. Until next time, I'll see you out on the water.